Hi, it's Ted and Penny Crumley. This is our second video. We want to apologize for being so long making a second video, but we've had a lot of things go on since then. Actually, we both have been sick, and we're better now, but we've also had on our farm, we've had we've been waiting on the sale of 2 of the calves, and they've since been sold last week. So we've gotten past some of the hurdles that we needed to get past to do another video, and so we're thankful to be here with you today.
Ted's also leaving out the major reason why we weren't able to get in contact with you or to actually put a video out. He had a rare reaction to the chemo infusion, and I'll just tell you the name of it, so if anyone's taking this medication, they'll know what to look for, or any other medications for that fact. It's called Kyprolis, and what was happening is we were both sick in December with, I guess, some type of virus. We don't know what it was. COVID was negative. His RSV was negative, and flu was also negative. But he had what we thought, the nurse practitioner and I thought, was a seizure during that time. So then in February, he had 2 more seizures. And I had been noticing throughout the time period that he was getting slower, and his words, his voice, and his speech was slowing down. So I knew something was up. I just didn't know what. And then he had 2 more seizures on February 6th. We spent 3 days in the hospital only to find out that after the oncologist spoke with his myeloma specialist, that what they saw in his MRI were examples of what is caused by this Kyprolis. So he's been taken off that, put on seizure medicines, and no longer able to drive for at least 6 months per state law. So it's been a ride for a little bit, but he is still in remission as of this point. We will know more when we go back in April to the myeloma specialist. They'll run more tests and everything. That's his normal routine a year after his myeloma. So life again has changed yet again, but we just grin and bear it and take the ride. That's about all you can do.
Yeah.
So, but we want to share a little bit about, when he first got his diagnosis of multiple myeloma, how it affected us. And I wanted to start it out by saying my experiences with not multiple myeloma, but cancer in general. And this might be a little emotional, and I'm sorry if I do get emotional, because this still hurts a lot. I was only 5, and I don't remember a lot of details. My family, I guess the Lord has shut it out of my head, but my sister actually had cancer. It was called rhabdomyosarcoma, and it was a type of cancer that children get. And if you see any of the St. Jude's, there's a little boy that talks about that he's got it, or did have it. I don't know if he's been, he's now gotten out of remission or in remission or what. But he talks about it. But my sister did pass away. It was really new in that day in 1968 or 9. I can't remember exactly what year it would be. But around that time, it wasn't something that was well known, and the treatment wasn't very good. And anyway, it was a difficult time period in my life. I've had problems with cancer. Scares myself. Before we got married, they thought I had pituitary cancer. It turned out to be nothing, or at least what they thought was something God may have taken care of. But I just want to, say that there was something going on in my body that was causing some lab values to be abnormal. And then I'm also a nurse, a registered nurse, so I have a lot of cancer experience. I'm not an oncology nurse. I deliberately stayed out of pediatrics and oncology because of my experience. But it seems like when I was working out at the bedside, that's where the nurses always, my charge nurse would always put me, was with the cancer patients. I don't know if I had more compassion on them and could talk with them better. I don't know, but that seems like that's where I always got put, was with the cancer patients. So anytime cancer is talked about, when we've had several family members that have died of it, myself including Ted. So it's not anything that the big C word, it scares me. It makes me very nervous. But I know that there's things that can be treatment now that can really change the whole process of cancer for the better for yourself. It gives you better quality of life now than it used to.
Yes. That's one thing we want to talk about is, once you get a diagnosis of cancer, excuse me, the stress involved in that. I was able to pretty much continue working once I got cancer, and everything was fully involved, and I guess it was December of 2022, and we immediately started as we got into 23 in January of last year.
So we really didn't have a lot of time to think about.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of time to adjust or think about it, and that's why I think there's an advantage, and we'll talk a little bit about some questions to ask when you get to that point. And maybe before you get to that point, if you can, because I wished I'd have asked more questions when I was in the smoldering phase. What's this all about? What's the normal? What can I expect? Those are things that we could talk about. So, but I remember having trouble focusing at work. Because cancer was the center of our thoughts.
And it had been the center of our thoughts for 3 years since then. Mm-hmm. And I had been able to go to I had not gone to the appointments, but I just felt like I needed to go to this specific appointment that he was going to in that December. And I had just changed jobs because it was a forced job change. So I had to do a lot of training, and I had been there for Ted the entire time until he got the news of it being active. That was very hurtful for me. So
it was pretty obvious something was going on because they called me early that morning of the appointment, about 10 o'clock, I guess, maybe a little earlier, and saying, the doctor wants you to come in at 12 today, so that was kind of an obvious point that something might be going on, so once we heard, it began to get even more stressful. As I said, cancer was the center of everything we thought about, and you kind of have to go around that thought process and just do normal activities, like, for instance, like I said, working. It was sometimes difficult to focus because of my mindset, and I was forgetting personal things that I usually do because of my lack of focus and my thought process of cancer, because you always try to think positive, but you still, what if this chemo doesn't work? What if that doesn't work? What if things don't work out like I'm thinking or like the doctors are planning? And so you start thinking about the negatives if you're not careful, and that's part of the battle. Again, that stress, and once you get into that thought process, it's hard to get yourself out of it sometimes. I had forgotten some things after matter of fact, after the stem cell transplant in April of 2023, I was out of work for about 2 or 3 months, and when I came back, I found that I'd actually forgotten some things after missing so much time, and so I needed to almost relearn some of the things and remind myself of, okay, this is how you do this, and most of it was computer work. Of course, I work in an office, so I had to remind myself, and I actually stop and ask some of my coworkers, how do you do this? I'm stuck. I can't remember how to get past this part, or whatever. So, and I got some really good coworkers who were good at helping me with that, and I guess.
And one of the other things I wanted to say in regard to that before he moves on to the next area is that I also had a job. We have a cat that's trying to get up here with us. We during that job change that I had, I was trying to deal with my stress level on top of taking him to appointments, because I wanted to be at those appointments if I could. But I was actually trying to trying to learn a new job, which was totally new to me. I'm not a bedside nurse anymore, so I'm in utilization management, and they moved us in our department, some of us in different areas, when they closed our hospital. And I ended up in this other type job, which was much different than I've ever done anything before. But because of all the stress, I just couldn't learn the job itself. So I ended up having to quit that job in February because it was just too much. And I didn't even get to start working until July again, once the stem cell transplant was over. And I think you started around August. Did you go back in August?
Something like that, I think.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess, we, as we dealt into the stress, we found some ways to deal with the stress. Of course, our faith was really helpful, and
the cat's here.
And the cat's sniffing around, wanting to help us. And so, our faith was very helpful in keeping our focus on the right things. And whenever I started thinking negative, I started going back to my faith, and we had a lot of family and friends support. I even posted a lot of my updates on Facebook, and people, I probably had, through the process, I probably had probably a couple hundred people or more just on Facebook, old friends, people I went to school with, just people I made contact with, hadn't been contacted for many years, and those folks were praying for me and offering support online, and I still have some of them who follow up with me occasionally, saying, "Hey, how you doing, Ted? You doing okay?" This kind of thing. So, I'm thankful for that, and I would suggest that.
We texted friends too.
Yeah.
We tried to keep everybody updated via text messaging.
And I would suggest that during your journey, you find someone who you can talk to. I had another guy reach out to me who actually, a lot of my friends and family suggested that I reach out to, because he had multiple myeloma at a young age, and he had experienced a lot of stuff, and he was a very supportive person. He was the kind of guy you could talk to. He was familiar with the medications used. He'd been through a lot of the treatments, and he went through the treatments when they were a lot worse than they were even when
20-something years ago.
Yeah, 20-something years ago.
Before all the advances of technology and the advancement of the new medications for nausea, how to treat the side effects.
Yeah. So my side effects were much different than his. As a matter of fact, very few when I think back on it.
He doesn't remember part of the stem cell transplant. Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next, probably video 3. But when I ran into my friend during the time, and right after I guess I was doing the chemo, we ran into him. It's actually, strangely, we ran into him at a yard sale, from my aunt's yard sale, and he looked at me, and he was amazed. He said, when I was doing chemo, Ted, I was not walking around. I was in a wheelchair, you know, so that's the differences in 20 years of advancements. And so I'm thankful for that.
If you are a prayer warrior, though, please pray for him. He's struggling right now. He's having some health issues of his own. And we haven't asked him if we can put his name out, so we're going to be very cognizant of that until we find out for sure. But please, unspoken request for him.
Yeah. So, I guess some questions, as we mentioned earlier, about when you're diagnosed with cancer. My actual chemo was much different. You know, a lot of people have to go to the chemo room at the cancer center, and they have a port in their side, and they
not their side, but their chest.
Their chest, and they get, you know, they hook up and they take the chemo that way, and you know, that was kind of the way I figured mine would be. But actually, I was shocked to find out that my chemo wasn't anything like that. It was actually injections in the stomach, so one thing that happened was that one of the chemo drugs, there were two different injections, and one of the drugs, Velcade, caused rashes on my stomach. So, you know, every week that I went in to get the chemo, they would have to look at my stomach, say, okay, we can go over here. There's not much rash here, because my whole, you know, stomach, especially toward the end, was
one big rash.
One big rash, you know, and so we had to kind of move around, but you know, we dealt with it, and it worked out fine. And
one of the medicines caused he won't like me talking about this, constipation.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, we really had to figure out some stuff for that. Yeah. We went through Miralax, prune juice, what else?
Yeah, and surprisingly, prune juice didn't work. Really.
He didn't like it. But finally, we used Linzess, and that worked.
Yeah, it worked pretty well. Yeah. So it took a while to work, but it did work pretty well. So, you know, sometimes you have to kind of be patient with the side effects and say, hey, you know, we'll make it work, and you know, realize that, you know, everything doesn't work instantly, you know, like we want it to. So, so some questions to ask when diagnosed with cancer is, what is the chemo like? You know, because, you know, I know some people who have cancer, they actually take a pump home with them, you know, and some go to the infusion center and they take cancer during a few hours or so there, you know. Some go in, we see people come in and, you know, and it takes, you know, maybe 30 minutes or an hour or so, and I guess they're on a maintenance plan or something. So, you know, it varies widely, you know, how, what the chemo might be like. So, so just know that and understand that, you know, it's a good question to ask. You know, what's the chemo like? What are the drugs? What are the side effects? You know, that's the second thing I would ask is, what are the side effects to this chemo, maybe? And you know, and what is the one of the toughest questions is, what is my prognosis? You know, what are the long-term effects? Can I expect, well, like me, you know, I wasn't sure, but you know, right now I'm, like Penny said earlier, I'm in remission, and but I'm still taking a maintenance plan, and you know, so and part of that maintenance plan, we'll talk about more about that after we talk about, get further down the road, what happened, you know, what happened during the last few weeks when I was going through the maintenance plan, and one of the drugs caused a problem. But you know, so it's managing the stress of cancer. I think you have to understand that it's normal to be under stress. You have to understand that cancer it thrives on you being fearful and being scared, and I think it actually sometimes gets worse sometimes, because I've seen people, be terrified of it, and it just seems to make it that much worse, so like I said, I think in the first video, replacing your fears with faith is one of the things that is really important when you're in this battle.
We just didn't have time to think about it a lot of times. We were just so into treatment that we didn't think about it. The fear and the anxiety that we had. So I would say that was the godsend for us, that we had to do that, and I'm able to just shut it off, I guess, and say, I gotta fight. We gotta fight. Not worry about it. It does take me some time to get past the initial shock. Usually it's 24 hours, but with this one, it took a lot longer for me to get into that mindset. And when I talk about mindset, I mean my faith has to be built back up. So it just takes a while for me, and that's just human nature. It may take someone just like that. They may be able to go right into their faith mode, but for me, I have to think about it. I'm a nurse, so I can think about all the other stuff that goes along with the cancer diagnosis. So it takes me longer to go past it than maybe Ted did, because I knew so much more. I tried my best not to, but I just did.
Yeah.
Hold on just one second. Hi. Now you see me with my reading glasses on. Philippians 4:6 has been a big help to both of us in regard to our anxiety and our stress. And this is one of the things that I pull back to every time. It says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. If you do this, you will experience God's peace, which is far more wonderful than the human mind can understand. His peace can guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. That's Philippians 4:6 and 7.
So that ends today's video. We will definitely try to do another third video a lot quicker than we did last time. I think it's been a couple of months since we did the first one. So again, we apologize for that, but we appreciate you joining us and sharing with this experience of our multiple myeloma journey. And if you have multiple myeloma or another cancer or what have you, just remember, focus on the battle. Try not to focus on the future as much as you do anything else. Focus on the battle. Take it day to day. Don't worry about tomorrow. So
live each day to its fullest.
Yeah, do the best you can each day. And so again, thank you for watching, and we hope you'll join us again on the third video. And thanks again for joining us today.
We love you. God bless.
God bless. Thank you.